So it still then took me a while to step out of corporate. It wasn't until 2015, 16 that I actually finally pursued
my
personal training, and I'd wanted to do that since I was in high school.
Okay. Hi, Paige. Thank you for coming on the podcast as the third guest.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. How are you?
Feeling great. Yeah. Excited. I'm just happy to be here, happy to be alive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. So for all those watching and listening, we are filming this third episode in House of Wellness in Mount Maunganui, New Zealand. So Paige is a yoga teacher specialising in mat and aerial yoga. She's also a personal trainer, writer and a mum. So Paige, I'm super keen to just get straight into it, hear about your story. So let's get started with the first question.
Yeah, let's do it.
So at this point in your life, what does success look like to you?
At this point in my life, success looks like being present with myself and being connected to myself, honouring my boundaries and pursuing the things that have always, I guess, sort of called me to them. And aligning myself with people that are on that same trajectory. And then just being present with my boy.
Yeah.
With my son. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's success. It's the people I'm connected to, and it's being deeply connected to myself.
And do you check in with yourself every day?
Every
on those
day.
kind of questions? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I have to. I'm pretty fortunate with my line of work because I've got to hold space for other people and ask those questions. So there's a bit of reflection there for me as well.
Yeah.
So whatever it is, when I'm holding the space and I'm leading people into introspection and reflection, as those questions are often what I'm feeling or thinking as well.
Yeah.
And because I do a lot of somatic, physical, body-based movements, that has been what I've learned over the years is constantly checking in with the self. And, that's our yoga philosophy is it's being aware of what's happening in the outside world, but keeping your focus on your inner world and knowing sensations, knowing thoughts, feelings. So that check-in is just consistent.
Yeah.
Being able to measure what's happening outside of me and then noticing what the reaction is inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you had to sort of like build up that kind of skill to be able to do that over the years? Because it's quite tricky to do, right?
Well, it's not just that it's tricky to do, it's that we're not taught how to do it from children. We, especially our generation, if you look at post-war parenting and then like our parents' generation, we as millennials were the first generation to acknowledge, honour trauma and abuse and all these other things and to start really owning our healing journey. So I spent a lot of my life disassociated from my inner world and was always the happy, loud person that held the space for everyone and brought people together and, always wanted to light up a room and make people feel better. I've always wanted to help people. But I didn't realize until I started my yoga journey how much I was not connected to my bodily based sensations.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's been a really, really important thing to build.
How did you realize initially?
Well, because I became an alcoholic at 17. And so I spiraled with alcohol for 5 years. And it was a really, really huge thing. And I think it is in Aussie and New Zealand. But it was a huge thing where I grew up. And it was just a part of the culture of the town I grew up in. And so, it was only when I realized that people had this expectation for me to always be loud, to always be happy, to always be out and about and to be wasted.
Right.
And then when I had that realization at 22 was when I and my friends had called 2 interventions on me.
Oh, really?
About my drinking, yeah. Because I started blacking out and I started raging.
Right.
It was the only time that my anger was getting
released.
and getting a voice and being acknowledged. All those things that I was suppressing within myself that I was feeling, all the grief, boundary violations through my life, because I was just always putting on this.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And so did a lot of that come from, I guess, just growing up in your teens? Was it stuff that you were just holding on to that was getting released? Like what?
Yeah, well, I think it was just being honest, being able to be honest with myself. It was a lot of the things, obviously, like most of us, it was parenting stuff. My relationship with my stepdad in particular,
right?
And those dynamics that were at play. And it's taken me a really, really long time to even unpack that, and then to go, that's what it was. But it was more being in that generation where we were told, like I used to get told, like a lot of us did, you're a child, you don't have an opinion.
Yeah.
Constantly being told just to be quiet.
Is that from your stepdad?
Yeah. And a lot of gaslighting behaviors. So there was a lot of, you didn't say that, you said this. You didn't say that, you said this. You didn't do that, you did this. And it just conflicted so much with my view of reality that I used to have to fight him head on.
Right.
To assert who I was rather than be swayed and, I guess, lose my sense of self. But the drinking started because I wanted to fit in and connect to other people.
And were a lot of people, and you said that a lot of people in your environment were kind of doing the same thing, right? So were you kind of in that?
Yeah, and I guess I just felt like I couldn't really be me at that time in my life and speak on the things that I was always really passionate on and aware of. I guess it was a way of trying to, bring myself to a level where I could relate to other people. Then, because what then happened was once I realized that I had this problem with drinking and it was controlling my decisions and I was basing my sense of self and happiness on outside circumstances, once I removed myself from my hometown and I moved away and I abstained from alcohol for 6 months.
Yeah.
And I started Muay Thai and boxing and yoga at 22.
Okay.
And I just immersed myself into these new environments. It created this huge gap between me and my people back home.
Yeah.
And that's when I started seeing my why, what the alcohol served, what purpose it had, and
it was kind of distracting you from a lot of the stuff that you maybe needed to face,
acknowledge and feel. Yeah, totally. And I mean, it all comes down to that, body keeps the score.
Yeah.
Still not read that book.
I really want to. It's on my list.
It's a great one. Yeah. It's a long one. It's quite a lot to get into. But
yeah.
And I mean, that was just the thing with diving into yoga and the philosophies, not just the asana and the physical practice. But then it was learning how to breathe properly.
Right.
Which has been fundamental.
Yeah. Just to calm the nervous system.
Everything
that goes with it.
Yeah. Self-regulation. But also it's not just about self-regulation. It's about managing our oxygen intake, our gaseous exchange in the lungs, and our sensitivity to carbon dioxide, which also affects the brain's capacity to think.
Right.
Because if you're not oxygenating the brain and the body by breathing properly, then you become more tired, run down, foggy. And honestly, it's probably not something that's really been spoken about or acknowledged, but not breathing effectively, I believe, can affect your ability to know yourself and to be able to assert yourself in certain situations.
Yeah. We used to have people come in and do workshops in like the various law firms that I worked in, and they would like teach us how to breathe at your desk, because I would just sit there when I was like really stressed out, and all of it would just be like held here.
Yep.
And I wouldn't even realize I was doing it, like day to day, just like
Yeah,
like not breathing.
When we breathe from up here, it actually activates our fight or flight.
Yeah.
So you end up in your stress response.
Yeah.
And when we breathe from down in our diaphragm, and you're actually engaging the lower lobes of the lungs, then you're actually coming out of fight or flight.
Yeah. Even just like a few deep breaths.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and do that every day. Interesting. Okay, so if we take it back, because I know that you grew up in Western Sydney.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so did you move out of Western Sydney when you were 22?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I went to the Gold Coast.
Yeah, went to the Gold Coast. Yep. Okay. So you removed yourself out of that kind of environment.
Yeah, but then I spent the first 3 months doing the same thing.
Yeah.
In a different environment.
Yeah.
I moved into this house with 4 other people, and it was this beautiful house on the river, like on the waterways on the Gold Coast, and it turned into the party house. And it was the same thing. There was just people in the house all the time. We were drinking and we were going to Surfers and Broadbeach and having, the time of our lives.
Yeah.
And then I realized
I'm doing all the same things.
I'm doing the same things. I'm just in a different environment. And that was when I made the decision, and it was a very clear, conscious choice, that I was done.
Right.
I had to be done with alcohol.
Yeah.
And that I had to take myself out of that environment and find a new home.
Would you say that you were making like quote unquote bad choices at that time though, or was it just the same thing when you were getting you mentioned like the rage and the anger, like what was coming up? Because I feel like...
No, when I was on the Gold Coast, I was so inspired being there, and it was exciting because I'd finally moved away and I had this liberation and I guess this joy that came through for trusting myself to move out of my hometown. So when I was drinking there, it was just elation.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, I still hadn't touched on all of the trauma that I'd suppressed from my childhood. It was just getting caught up in having fun and partying and, that distraction that we all do at one time or another.
Well, yeah, 100%. Because I was going to say it's like, I think as well, sometimes I feel pulled in 2 directions being in my 20s still. It's like, you sometimes see things on social media like you need to go out and have fun, like let loose, stop taking life so seriously. Like, and a lot of that comes with, like, I guess, like drinking alcohol, going partying, like, so, and then sometimes I'm like, no, I need to get my shit together and I need to do this and do that. But then if I do that too much and stray off too much down that road, I'm like, oh, but I'm young and I need to have fun. And sometimes it can actually be quite confusing, to me anyway, to know like how I should be doing life. So I guess it wouldn't have been that, like, that's actually pretty admirable that you were able to see that at 22.
Yeah,
right?
well, I'm very fortunate that I have a friend group that, if anything, is very honest with each other, and I still have those same friends in my life now. And, I mean, it must have been really hard for them because we were all partying at that time. It was just that the drinking for me had become so extreme.
Yeah.
And I was blacking out and literally waking up the next morning and rolling over to my best friend and going, did I have a good night last night? And so for them to call me up, the first time I sort of went, nah, it's not a real thing. And then the second time, because I love and trust these people so much, I really had to weigh up if what they were saying had some substance. And because my mum and I were having a lot of conflict over it because she had overcome drinking because it's in my bloodline.
Okay.
So it was quite triggering for her.
Did you grow up watching her?
It was more as I think people got older, but it became more prominent.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so there's all those sort of factors that came into play. And then, yeah, it was just being able to have those people in my life to be honest with me, and then being able to be honest with myself. And that is the first part in any change. And like that's definitely where I measure success is, am I being honest with myself?
Right.
Because if we're not being honest with ourselves, then we're usually in a state of denial.
Yeah.
And then the next step is deception, self-deception. And if you have too much self-deception, then you end up in full-blown delusion.
Yes.
And so you're not rooted in reality.
No.
Yeah.
And the mind can like easily do that actually, right?
Yeah.
Just to justify
and to make excuses
certain
for
behaviors.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So actually being honest with yourself is a pretty scary thing to do, I would say.
Yeah.
And just trust your intuition and trust that you're making the right choices for yourself.
Yeah.
But I guess, did you feel that intuitively at that time, like really strongly, that you needed to make all these start making all these changes?
Well, at the time when I remember the moment that I realized I had to go, and it was because I got honest with myself and I started asking the question, and I sort of received the insight outside of myself. And so when I was like, okay, I've got to go, I'm not happy here. I'm relying on external factors. Like, this is all just a big ruse and I don't want to be out drinking all the time.
Right.
And I have no boundaries. And I didn't know the word at that time. Boundaries wasn't really a thing, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But, so I think it was just, there was something outside of me that was definitely pushing me. But I had to be the one to listen and to follow that push and that pull.
Yeah.
And every time I've done that, it's led me to evolution. Yeah. New levels within myself, new ways to grow and change. And then with that comes the connections that, with the people that you meet.
And the self-trust.
Oh, big time. Yeah. Knowing that no matter what comes your way, you can handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start to back
and
yourself.
That's scary. But also learning that, and this is where yoga's been pivotal for me, and breath, is that what I'm really feeling inside me is okay and I can handle it. And we get so conditioned to suppress and disassociate. A lot of us live in a state of fawning or functional freeze. And that's what I realized that I did a lot of, is not really acknowledging or even understanding the messages that my body was telling me from an emotional standpoint. So physical, as in like doing sport and moving, I could understand all of those. But when it came to emotional center, it was just I was completely disconnected from it.
As in you didn't know kind of what your body was trying to tell you? Or?
No, because I hadn't honored it for a really long time. And I don't think a lot of us do. It was just too scary. And also there's not been a lot of space within society and even families, like just with these little dynamics to, oh, you're feeling grief right now, Amy, like
that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Or you really need to cry. That's okay. I don't need to take that away from you. I don't need to change it. I don't need to make you feel better or make you happy and smile and laugh instead. It's learning that actually there's grief there. Let's just honor the grief.
Feel it.
Just sit in it. And I think people, maybe we subconsciously become afraid that we're going to become the grief or become the anger, whatever the emotion is, once we start to feel it. But what I've learned is it's the only way to move it and to come into present moment, because otherwise you're carrying so much past.
100%.
Yeah, and it becomes heavy.
Oh, yeah.
Heavy.
And we were just chatting about this before we started recording, right? Which is that you're actually helping me discover a lot of that sort of stuff about myself.
Yeah.
Which is like, this is a really new learning for me, which is like, it's okay to feel angry sometimes.
And I see so many reflections of you in me and me in you, and it's so cool. And I forget that you're still in your 20s.
But I'm definitely still in that phase where I feel like I need to be the happy, bubbly person for everyone. Like, and nobody's putting that on me. I put that on myself every day, right? I have this bar to meet, and I must always reach this level of energy and positivity to feel, I guess, worthy.
Yeah.
And for years I've been saying, look, but everyone puts this pressure on me. And actually now I'm discovering, I'm like, oh no, that's coming from myself, right?
But it's probably a role that you took on in childhood without realizing as well. So what I have found within myself is being highly sensitive to the energies around me.
Yeah.
And
yes, we're both similar like that. Yeah.
Like sensing, I've always been able to sense if someone is feeling grief or anger or any of, our heavier, lower spectrum sort of emotions, and wanting to not take it away from people. Maybe when I was younger, that's that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to save people.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to make everyone feel this love that I feel for life. And
Why
I
do you
guess
think that is?
I believe it's my purpose here.
Yeah.
I don't know, ever since I was 4 years old, I remember wherever it came from, but I've always had this thought or this belief that I'm here to help people.
Yeah.
And because I lacked boundaries, I used to step into more of a savior role. So it was taking other people's things and like putting it on my shoulders. And
Right.
now it's about, okay, I can sense what you're going through.
Yes.
I don't need to move you out of that. You don't need to move you out of that. You can just be with it. We can both be there.
Yeah.
And we can be together, but that's yours. This is my experience. And it's the same thing as that if I'm moving through grief or anger, I want to be able to share that with someone.
Yeah.
And not you feel like, oh, that's really uncomfortable and I don't, not feel like I'm trying to put it on you.
Yeah.
But just being able to hold space
Yes.
for another person. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were 4, did you what was that defining moment when you realized I feel like that's my purpose? Was there something that happened or?
No, because my parents didn't separate until I was 6.
Yeah.
And I remember all of that and I remember feeling all of that. But this is just something that I don't know how to explain it, but ever since I remember having an awareness of self, that's like my fundamental memory of just being here to help people.
Wow.
And I've probably done that in a lot of the wrong ways over the years where I would, if I saw people doing things that were detrimental to their health, I would challenge them and go head to head and really try to, shake them out of,
Yeah.
So like 5 years old, 6 years old, I used to fight with my family members over smoking.
Yeah.
It just never made sense to me.
Yeah.
And I'd watch these adults around me and be like, you guys are crazy. Like, why are you doing this thing? And it was just something that intuitively didn't feel right to me.
Yeah.
And I guess the smell and the whole experience, maybe an energetic frequency with smoking.
Right.
And so I tried to control that.
I was just going to say, do you think that's control,
Big time.
right?
Big time.
And we see this just so often in life where it's like sometimes it can seem like the person trying to help you is doing it just purely with that intent. But sometimes it is just control for them, right?
Yeah.
And it's about also knowing yourself.
Well, I think as well, an element of control is it comes down to whether you trust that person to make their own decisions and to lead their own life. Yeah. And I think it all circles back to because we are so disconnected from what we really feel. We're not in our bodies. We're walking around highly disassociated, distracted even more so now than what we were in the 90s.
Yeah.
But when we don't truly know ourselves, then we're more likely to make decisions that are harmful to our health.
Yeah, 100%.
And so that was what my level of control came from, was not wanting bad things for the people that I care about. And trying to, I guess, shape the choices that they made. Because, realistically, and especially now that I'm a mother, it's like every choice that I make affects my boy.
Yeah.
So
Right.
all of my health practices and stuff, it's not just for me, it's for the people that I'm deeply connected to.
Yeah.
And I've just had to learn over the years that I have to honor people and give them their space to choose whatever they're going to choose.
Yeah, you can guide them.
Yeah.
Especially as a yoga teacher, as a mum.
Yeah.
Like in different capacities, you can guide people, but you can never really control people.
No. And you got to love them anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So taking it back to, because I know that you worked in corporate for years, which is a very different to the life that you live now. I can say the same for myself too, just coming into this new phase. When did you start working in corporate, and what was that kind of chapter of your life like?
Oh, debilitating in one word. So I was 19, I think, when I first moved into corporate. And I worked for some really big name corporations, so American Express and then Flight Centre and then Apple. So I've had some really amazing experiences with some of those, and then some really stressful, traumatizing experiences.
Yeah.
so corporate world was just me trying to figure out my place in the world, but it was trying to fit in with other people's expectations.
Yeah.
And
maybe your own expectations or more other people's?
Other people's, yeah. At that point in time when I was 19 and I worked at American Express, it was not really knowing. Well, I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't. That pressure with school, it's really big in Australia, is like you've got to have a HSC,
right?
Which is year 12. Otherwise, you're going to go nowhere in life. And so you've got these teachers just constantly bombarding this and throwing this stuff down your throat.
Yes. In terms of what?
And
qualifies as you doing
you're
well,
be
being successful,
you're not going to get a job, you're not going to be
intelligent.
employed. Yeah, and it's like they just completely disregard interpersonal skills, your ability to learn,
creativity,
all of those other things. That
my
are
goodness,
so much
it's still
more
such an
important.
issue globally, isn't it? It's just like there isn't really
the
much
number
room
of your test. It's like, so there was a lot of that external pressure,
which causes a lot of people to then that's like breeds kind of like perfectionist, anxious, high achieving people, or then people that go, actually, I'm going to go my own way, but then they feel like they're not somehow successful or yeah.
Well, Sydney is it's a really beautiful city, but there's just this hum, this constant vibration. It doesn't stop. And there is very much like, I guess, an ego of what you have and what you achieve and how much money you have and status. And it's not even hidden. It's very much there on the surface.
Right, okay.
And so when I first pursued this job and I moved into corporate, it was my boyfriend at the time. It was a lot of that influence was sort of his mum's, was because she was really worried that I was 19 and we were together and when were we going to settle down and start saving for a house.
At 19?
Oh, yeah. And I didn't have money behind me and like.
Right. That's crazy. I mean, you're so like a child.
But I mean, so that was really, really interesting having that. And I'd known her and him for a lot of my life. And so I got this job because I thought I had to. And I thought, American Express is like, it's a good name.
Yeah.
Right. And it's global. And so within starting, I got a promo within finishing my training, and I was looking after the top 1% of the customers, which is your titanium card holders. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. At 19?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was the most stress-inducing thing I've ever done in my life.
Right.
Call center.
Right.
So it was just call after call after call after call, and everything was KPIs. It was like and I can't help myself. I like to connect with people. So I'd end up on the phone to these people. Paige, you're on the phone too long.
Oh, okay.
You need to be taking more calls and making the calls that you're having shorter. I was like, but these are your top 1% of your customers.
Yeah.
I'm building relationships with them. And a lot of the time it was like these problems. And I'm trying to go in and solve them. And to me, it's actually building the relationship with the person is the best way to problem solve.
Yeah.
And then you take care of the practical things after.
Yes. Yeah.
So that just really didn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
And I tried to make it work, but something in my body just repelled it, and I was having anxiety attacks and breakdowns at 19. Yeah.
Wow.
And so
did you understand why at that point?
No, not at all. No, I'd started having mini panic attacks that I'd never really had them before that. It was just this stress that was coming up, and it was the turning point for me. Was then I started calling in sick, and because I was having to train like from Penrith to Sydney every day, so I was getting up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, jumping on the train to be in for a 7 o'clock start and whatever, and then it was just
7 o'clock start.
Yeah. Because then I had a 3 o'clock finish, you see, and we could just go next door to the pub and get on the piss.
Have it, yeah.
So I had it all planned.
And your nervous system was probably just like,
absolutely shocked. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
but did you feel successful?
No. And I was earning really good money for my age, and I was fresh out of school, so it was like, and people were like, oh my God, you're working in American Express. And it was definitely like, there was that external, I guess, validation.
Yeah.
But I was just like, this is not. And so, yeah, my ex-boyfriend's mum, I remember her, it seemed like she was very disappointed when I gave up that job. I was like, what are you going to do now? And
it's always just,
But when I started having these panic attacks and stuff, and I remember this one day I took the day off work and I drove around to one of my good friends from school at the time. They're Māori, and her mum was like my second mum. And we ended up sitting on the front lawn, and I was just beside myself. Beside myself. And she was the first person, because everybody else would be like, oh, you know, just stick it out, make it work.
Yeah.
What is stressing you out about it so much?
Yeah,
and it was just not aligned. And she just said to me straight away, you know, she was like, this is not for you.
No.
You need to resign.
Yeah.
Like, what is it that you want? Is this how you want to feel? Is this who you are?
Yeah.
She's like, this isn't who you are. And it was amazing just having that one guiding force that just called me on the bullshit and wasn't afraid to say no. You know, and I was able to make that decision. And even though then it was like, oh, what do I do now? I just knew I had to pull the pin and redirect.
Yeah.
And after that one time, I've been able to do that numerous times.
Yeah. I think that word is so key, right? Alignment, because it's like some people would have loved to be in that position.
Yeah.
And would have loved to be living that life and would have, you know, because it can come in stages as well. Sometimes it will serve you for a time of your life, not the whole time, right? So, but that word alignment is so key for us all to remember, because it's like you know and you'll feel it.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just the thing, is we've all got to find our own paths and what works for us. And I just knew that wasn't for me. Because I had a friend, a really good friend I was working with, and he would say to me, I mean, he's Indian, so for him, he was just super grateful to have the job and you know, good money and you know, they do a lot of call centers and things. So he just said to me, and he wasn't so affected if people would get aggressive on the phone and stuff. He would just be like, oh, okay, that's nice. Have a good day. And it was just like water off his back. Whereas if I'd get off a phone call and I'd just been abused by someone, like I was like, and I couldn't regulate myself. I was so upset. I was so distraught.
I'd probably.
And he was just like, Paige, it doesn't matter. They're just people on the other end of the phone. Don't worry about it.
And like, get this guy on the potty.
He's amazing. He was so amazing. It was such a cool friendship.
Yeah.
But I just said, I was like, Varun, I can't do this.
No.
And he didn't understand, and I didn't understand his perspective. So it worked for him.
Right.
Didn't work for me.
No.
At all.
No. And so so when you had that chat on the front lawn, was that when because I know that you did resign the next day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was something like that. It was very soon.
And was that when you then directed away from the corporate life, or I sort
of went back over the next couple of years. Yeah. And so then when I was on the Gold Coast, I got a job at Apple.
Yes.
And I absolutely loved my time there.
Yeah.
But didn't at the same time.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of energy that you're working with, and I just couldn't deal with the devices. I was like, I'd come home and I would feel the electricity through my body.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I lived across the road from the beach at that time, so I used to have to jump in the ocean just to recharge myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny again, because a lot of the people that I was working with, I'd say these things to them and they were like, what are you talking about?
Right. That's interesting. I've never felt that, but maybe now I'll be.
It was all fluorescent lights.
I mean,
and there was you know, tables and tables of computers and phones, and everything was connected to Wi-Fi, and you were just in this tunnel of a room.
Yeah.
And dealing with just people in, people out, people in, people out, and a big team of people, which amazing people. It was one of the best. I guess work communities that I've had in that way. It was like being in school and getting paid for it. So it was fun.
That's fun.
But in that particular instance, it was just the energy, the electricity, the Wi-Fi. It was just
too much.
Yeah, I couldn't deal with it.
Yeah. And so when you finally really stepped out of that lifestyle of being in corporate and I guess like, you know, living a life that kind of didn't feel that aligned to you, did you have any grief that came with that? Was there any kind of like, you know, I guess kind of egoic reaction?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Especially leaving Apple. American Express, not so much because
you just needed out of there.
I had an awesome group of people I worked with, which has been sort of across the board with every job I've had. But definitely leaving Apple, that was a bit of a chip on the shoulder working there, and everyone that worked there was like, oh, we work at Apple, you know, because it was 5 interviews to get that job. It was huge.
Yeah, don't doubt.
So the screening process was massive.
Yeah. Still an amazing achievement. This is the thing, right? It's like you can still be so proud of that.
To be honest, the skills that I took away from that business and that time in my life was unparalleled to anything else. And I don't think I would be where I am in myself or my career without my time at Apple.
Yeah.
Because the interpersonal skills that they teach you and the money that they have actually put into the core of their business is amazing.
Yeah.
So that was really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, then I did medical reception for years.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Yep. So it still then took me a while to step out of corporate. It wasn't until 2015, 16 that I actually finally pursued my personal training, and I'd wanted to do that since I was in high school.
Did it feel good at the time? Just
No.
No?
No way.
Oh,
I had grown men criticizing my decision every time I left when I,
so it was like a
buffet. Females too. It was like, yeah.
Why do you
like, what are you
that?
doing? Yeah. That's not where you should be. You should be staying here and, you know.
I guess when people deviate outside of the normal.
Yeah, and I guess there was maybe a little bit of fear, but also knowing the way that I put my energy into my work, it benefited them. So when I really led with that feminine intuition and knowing and going, actually, this just isn't right for me, and stepping out of the masculine and really trying to lean more into my feminine, it was very much criticized and rejected. Yeah. So when I first started pursuing my PT, personal training, it was really triggering because I then stepped into an industry that's not very regulated, and the industry itself is very much built on ego and what people look like.
Yeah.
Rather than, you know, really
how they
trying
feel?
to. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I really had quite a big awakening. With selling myself, trying to ask people if they wanted to use me as a trainer, and then doubting what I know. And there's just so much to learn.
Yeah, you probably have to get comfortable with a feeling of rejection.
Big time. And I have I won't say I have it now, but I had rejection dysmorphia my whole life. I was terrified of being rejected.
Yeah.
Which tied in with the alcoholism and everything as well.
Right. I think a lot of people do.
Yeah, I think so. We're so afraid of being rejected that we will do anything to not
feel that. It reminds me of like the way it would come up for me. It would be like in school or in uni, even in law school. It'd be like, if I just don't study for this properly, or like to my field, then if I don't do well, it's not me failing or being rejected, or, you know, it's the same sort of thing. It's like you can be so scared of it that you just won't put your full
self into
energy
it.
or full self into it.
Yeah, I don't. There was a quote I read somewhere, and it was like, it's not actually failure that we fear, it's success. Yeah. It's putting your bigness into things and your energy into things and your passion and your heart.
Yeah.
And then what if I fail? What if I'm criticized?
Yeah.
What if I don't make it then and I've gone all in?
100%.
Yeah, so the rejection dysmorphia definitely got triggered at that time in my life. And once again, I didn't know what it was. And see, that was interesting because then I started working in a gym which will remain nameless that was and is very built around ego and image and bodybuilding, and steroids run through that place, and you know, bikini comps and all the things that just really promote dysmorphia.
Right. Did you see that playing out?
Yeah.
With the people that you were meeting and
Yeah. And then there was also just your average Joes that were coming in, and they're like my bread and butter.
Right.
You know, and so, yeah, it was quite hard to then try to fit myself into an environment that I wasn't aligned with. again. So even though
Right.
I'd moved into the sphere that I wanted to be in, I knew I wanted to do personal training and to teach people how to move better.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to do it in the way that it's been traditional for the last 30 years. I wanted to be really helping people to feel better in themselves and to empower them to make better choices in their lives.
Yeah.
And to me, just worrying about how much fat we can lose is not, and how amazing we look in a bikini. As much as like those are awesome goals,
That's the
it's an awesome
thing.
achievement. It's like that doesn't make up the whole, it doesn't constitute the whole person.
I think it's like indicative of often like the struggle with finding balance in anything, because they're brilliant goals to have. It's like, I want to get in shape, I want to be fit, I want to look good. Fine, that's amazing. But it's like, how do you then balance that with like not putting all of your worth into looking a certain way?
Yeah. Well,
right?
you got to know your why, because if you're doing it for other people and you're only doing it for the validation, then it's very superficial and it's just going to breed more of that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're teaching someone to feel better within themselves, to know themselves, like it all circles back around, less likely to be manipulated, less likely to fall for abusive behaviors, less likely to remain in toxic environments, less likely to keep ourselves in places that don't align with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how did you work through that at the time then when you were in personal training?
I was just being myself and doing what I like to do for people. And then I actually got fired, which was the first job I've ever been let go of.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell us about this. That sounds interesting.
That's actually triggering because I haven't dove into that for a really long time.
Right.
That was devastating. I fell to pieces when that happened because I took it as a rejection of who I am.
Right.
And it was kind of shattering at the time because I put so much exchange into my work, whatever it is that I'm doing. And I was a little bit blindsided because it was extremely manipulative and it was all bullshitted.
Right.
The reason for me being let go. And so then there was a few of the girls that, I guess I'd really connected with, and I guess I'd had a bit of influence over, and so then they all got fired.
Oh,
it was like this chain reaction. It was so crazy because we didn't want to just go along with what was being told from the top down and who we needed to be and how we needed to look. And
right.
it was,
okay.
Yeah. So that was really, really interesting. But then I had this redirection. I sat in the grief. That was probably one of the first times in my adult life that I let the grief come up. And I'd been a few years into my yoga practice at this stage. So I cried and I journaled about it and I sat with the feelings, and then I went, okay, what am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
And then I got told about this other gym over in Paddington, and a girl from this first gym had said to me, look, this is not the place for you. And there's this other gym called Flow Athletic in Paddington, and I think they would really align with you. You should give them a call. And I hadn't heard of them at this stage. So I looked them up, and rather than giving them a call, I just turned up, drove there one day and went in and met the manager, and I said, hey, I'm Paige, I want a job here. And he was like, and then I did. I got the job, and it was an amazing environment. And the boss was really awesome, and he put a lot into our personal development, and I was still really insecure about myself as a trainer at this stage, and I'd been doing it for about 2 years by now.
Yeah. Especially coming out of like being let go and stuff.
But he built me up so much, and it was really, really amazing. We had an awesome team, and he just believed in, his art as a trainer himself and the business that he'd built. And because it had yoga as a part of the business, it was a big philosophy. It was around wholeness, and they'd built this amazing community. And then he was actually the one that started saying to me, right, I think you'd be really amazing at being a spin instructor. I'm going to pay for you to go and become a spin instructor. Nice. And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I did, and I loved it, and I thrived. And then I said, well, I want to do my yoga teacher training. And so that all aligned, and Yeah, that was amazing. And that's a whole nother part of the journey that sort of just unfolded. But that's the thing, if I hadn't had been let go and pushed out of this wrong environment and then gone, okay, what next? And still followed, even though I felt so insecure, still followed that call. Yeah. Then I don't know that I would have actually ended up doing my yoga instructing at that time.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it just sort of got given to me.
I feel like you could, like, everyone can take a lot of peace from that sort of thing, which is like, actually, as much as we can all go through really hard times and really awful things can happen, there's good that can come from
well, it was definitely a redirection.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have left otherwise. And then, I mean, it's the same thing that happened with my separation.
Yes.
So sometimes the most traumatic thing you go through and the most painful thing that another person can inflict on you, there's always got to be some sort of light on the other side.
Which is so hard to remember when you're in it at the time.
So hard.
And then and again, it all, like, I feel...
Well, because you've got to trust that there's something on the other side of that. And I think we just give in to the despair. And there's a difference between being in despair and despondent, because that means that you've got no hope and you don't see any light, and being in touch with our grief and being in touch with our anger and our rage and those emotions when our boundaries are violated or when we've been hurt. So there's a difference on the spectrum of feeling what we feel, acknowledging it, or swinging the other way and going into full-blown depression, anxiety. And I've definitely swung, more into the depression and anxiety stage through a lot of my life. But the more I dove into yoga and breath work, the more it started pulling me out of that depressive state and really just, oh, you know what? I'm just feeling the energy of these emotions, and it's okay.
And that's okay.
Because I know that once I've felt it and that energy moves, then I'm gonna move into something else again.
Yeah. And it's about just, I guess, trusting that you will kind of, like, you've gotten through one thing once before like that. So it's like, then the more,
momentum you sort of gain. Yeah. And it's the more you can just acknowledge your inner world and be okay with it.
I guess it's just so tricky to do, but it's like the more you practice it.
Well, it's because we keep ourselves so distracted, right?
Yeah.
And we don't get honest with ourselves of, hey, this thing's actually not working for me and I'm not going to do it anymore. Because if we were more honest with ourselves, we would make more bold decisions and we would step into the unknown.
Yeah. Well, that was literally my life last year.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like being a lawyer in London, which again is like a life that, which is a life that I dreamed of when I was going through uni, and that a lot of people, it's a position that a lot of people would love to be in, but it wasn't right for me. But I kept telling myself over and over again, no, you just got to push through. You're the one that's not handling this well or coping well, or you just got to, like, I guess, strap in and it'll be fine. And every single day I was ignoring my intuition and my instincts.
Yeah.
Until it got to the point that I was like, I cannot ignore this any longer. And then I guess it was about, I went through a phase of being like, okay, well, I need to sort this, that, and that before I can leave and do this.
You make excuses almost and you push it back.
Yeah. And then it just got to one day where I was on the phone with my brother and he was like, Ames, you just got to pull
Bite
it.
the bullet.
Yeah. And, like, leave that job and everything else will come to you. Take action first.
Yeah.
Before thinking, then taking action, because nothing was ever going to happen. And so, just, I guess, trusting. And literally it just felt like I was... like, I don't know, catapulting myself off of a cliff.
You grow these wings and you're like,
it's like, let's just see, which is really scary. And I'm still in that phase. But coming back to that, I guess it's just about trusting yourself as well. I want to delve into your life as a yoga teacher.
Yes.
I really want to delve into this because I would say a lot of us in this day and age a lot of us feel like we need to always be striving. We live in the future. It's, we kind of feel like we have to reach certain milestones and achieve certain goals. And just, it's always kind of like you're living your life for the future and it's really hard to stay grounded and stay present and kind of just reflect on what you've got and who you are. And right, there's like a tension there, I think, for me anyway, I think for a lot of people. So obviously the kind of philosophy around yoga and the teachings that come with yoga, it's very much about being still, present,
Yeah.
sitting in the life that you are living now. And so how have you found that being a yoga teacher has kind of like taught you to kind of do that more, Paige?
Well, there's quite a few parts to the answer. So yeah, obviously the main philosophy and foundation of yoga, there's so many branches now, it's quite hard to keep up with, but it's all about coming into present moment. And when we come to present moment, we are in connection with source. So I think that does get missed quite a lot, especially in the Western world. And unfortunately, like platforms like Instagram have really changed the way that we view or perceive these practices. You know, they're ancient. They've been around for thousands of years from India. And, you know, the ancient yogis were receiving this sort of download and then putting it into practice. And so the whole practice for me has been really fundamental in teaching me how to breathe properly.
Yeah.
So there's all these different sort of limbs and tools that you use, which is what yoga is. But essentially it's about coming into present moment. And yoga loosely translates to yoke or to bring together, to make whole. But it's about yoking to and connecting to divine.
Yeah.
Higher source, power, God, universe. Like people use lots of different words.
Yeah.
But it's all about devotion to higher power.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that does get lost. And for me, it has really, really deepened my relationship with God to the point where I wouldn't even use the word God for a lot of my life. I was very, very resistant to it. Yeah.
Why?
And then just because I think there's a lot of loaded things that have happened throughout human history in the name of God.
Right.
And manipulations that to me don't actually stand on God and that are the opposite.
Yeah.
So whereas I've made peace with that now, and to me I know what I feel is God within and without, and I'm okay with using that word now without feeling triggered and all of that, because it's not some external concept that someone else has given to me. Now, whereas before it was that angry man in the sky that's going to punish you. And I was.
Did you grow up religious?
No. My parents were like, we're Protestant, but non-practicing. It was always sort of just. I'm pretty lucky. It's quite funny because we had a lot of rules growing up and very, very old school. But at the same time, everything was like, you've got to figure out who you are and what you want. But there was definitely a little bit more of a non-belief in God in my family. No one ever really spoke about God. No one, you know, we never blessed our food. We never did prayers. We never went to church. No one really had any spiritual life. And that is where I think I got really lost because I could feel this thing so deeply and I had nowhere to put it.
Yeah.
I had no context. I had no one that I could speak to about these things. So I was always really attracted to Buddhism and yoga. And from a young girl, I remember it always being put in my awareness and I would hear about it as a really young girl. Yeah, it's so weird. It just got put in my path. Yeah. And the first time I ever did a meditation practice was actually I would have been maybe 12 or 13 at school, and it was a dance teacher and she was quite out there and did more interpretive dance, and she actually took us through a meditation practice. And I remember and we were laying down, I remember just like leaving my body and
oh my gosh, yeah,
having this incredible, and that was probably one of the first times I got guided with breath and stuff as well. But
at
that time,
like 12, 13, I'd wish
just happened to me. Yeah,
awakening came at that age.
I've had so many weird things happen my whole life. And once again, never had anyone to talk to, never had a guide. So it was like, I'm just going to, I don't know what I'm going to do with this.
Right.
So yeah, finding my way to yoga. I first took myself to a class when I was 22. I'd left my hometown. I'd moved to the Gold Coast. I did that 3 months in that first place I was in, and then I realized, oh my God, I'm doing the same shit.
Yeah.
So I manifested a house in Burleigh Heads right across from the beach, this beautiful purple cottage, and I got approved. I sat on the beach in Byron Bay. I did my application in Byron Bay, and it was literally from deciding I'm done drinking and I'm going to live in Burleigh.
Yeah.
And I got online and I found this house and I applied on the beach in Byron and I got the call the very next day and got approved without even seeing the house.
Did you buy the house?
No, it was just a rental.
Right. Yeah.
And when I went to see the house, I stood out the front and I was like, well, I've dreamt about this place before.
Yeah. Oh.
And it was like full body shivers. And even to this day, I'm like, I got given this thing because I'd started following what I was being pushed and pulled towards and away from. And, you know, those moments of leaps of faith and stepping into the unknown. And then I got given this thing that I was just so supported and nurtured and held and abundant. And I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is real. Yeah. And so one of my best friends that I made working at Apple.
Oh, nice.
And she's still one of my best friends to this day. We ended up living together in that house.
Cool.
And so we took each other to our first yoga class. And oh my gosh, we absolutely giggled the whole way through. I was 22, maybe 23, just before I turned 23. And we were looking at each other like, what are we doing here?
Really?
Yeah, and I was always into like woo-woo stuff, but it was just being so far out of our comfort zone.
Yeah, I get that.
And, you know, if you haven't been in a group, if it's not been normalized for someone to guide you through breath work, and it can be quite, you know, and so we were just giggling, I think, because we were having so much fun together as well. And we were like, we finally did it.
Yeah.
And then we walked out of the class, got into her car, and we sort of just stopped and looked at each other. And there was this profound shift that we both felt. And I knew from that class that I was supposed to teach yoga. It was like these things that I'd been feeling in my body and these little callings and whisperings I'd always had, I was like, it just dropped in. It was like, you're supposed to teach this. And I was sort of like, oh, okay, wow. Yeah. And so, yeah, we'd both committed to our practice. And, yeah.
What do you think that shift was?
Presence.
Yeah.
Breath. Being here in this moment. And group energy. And this is what people don't realize is group energy is so profound. So if you have yourself and you've made a decision, if you're resonating at a certain frequency, whatever that frequency might be, you know, there's a certain sort of field that's generated from that.
Yeah.
If you align with another person who's on that same frequency, the amplification is massive.
Yeah.
Okay. So from 1 to 2, it doesn't only double, it almost triples.
Oh, okay.
And then you've got, and that's what happens, like you get your mastermind groups and then when you bring people in the same frequency together.
Super powerful.
Yeah.
We had this conversation in P3. Yeah. About, it's like festivals as well. I didn't, you were the first person I'd ever spoken to about group energy. I'd never really thought much about it before, but you're so right. It's like you can feel.
Yeah. And so you need to be really careful of the groups that you're taking yourself into. You need to know the intention behind them because they can influence in huge ways.
And like also just with, I guess, friendships and connections, right? And again, this is something I'm learning. It's like you can sort of, there's advice out there that you can hear, which is like, if you come away from a friend and you feel drained, maybe put some boundaries in. And I never used to understand what that was, because your energy can sometimes actually feel drained from certain people or connections or whatever, then it's maybe not the right connection for you. And it's like, is that the same sort of?
I think it can be.
Yeah.
So with that, there's two ways. It could just be that person is either consciously or subconsciously taking energy from you. So boundaries are very important, energetic boundaries, but it's also learning how to, so there could be you need to discern whether that person is right or wrong for you. But a lot of the time people just aren't conscious. So you might come away from one person feeling drained because you're actually subconsciously taking the energy and trying to take it from them, which is what I spent a lifetime doing. So people that aren't necessarily bad for me or abusive or horrible would leave me feeling drained because myself, I would always try to manage other people's energy.
Right, I see.
So there's two ways that can go. So that's where discernment's really important. But it's really knowing your energetic boundaries. Oh, that's that person's energy. That's okay. And sometimes you'll come into contact with someone where your energies will align and there's an amplification and an expansion, and that's cool too. And sometimes it'll be like this, you know, and in those times it's being able to go, okay, like you might be down here and that's fine, or, you know, not trying to pull that person up to you or lower yourself down.
Right, it's just acceptance a lot of the time. So how did you find when you started practicing yoga more frequently and you started your teacher training, how did you see that play out in your life, like in terms of the changes that you were going through?
I just knew that it was something I had to pursue. There was no doubt in my mind about it. And it was really funny because I didn't have the same insecurities that I had when I first stepped into personal training. And in fact, it actually really propelled my trust in myself within the personal training sphere, and it brought everything together. And because by that time, like I did my training at Flow Athletic and I had this amazing team and leader who really believed in me. And he was like, I don't know why you doubt yourself so much. And so when I did my yoga teacher training and had this amazing, beautiful bunch of girls, an amazing instructor, that just, I'd already had 2 years of practice as a trainer and I'd started building my confidence in that sphere. And then it was, you know, it was really getting into the philosophies of yoga, not just the asana, not just the physical practice, which is so important. It's not just how well you do a pose. It's how well you're able to breathe into it and handle discomfort, how you greet discomfort by using your body. But once I delved into the philosophies of yoga and I understood all of the stories behind it and, you know, the other practices, it just all made sense to me. And it was, I guess, another shedding of ego for me. And I'm not saying that my ego doesn't come out in different ways and I'm egoless. I'm human.
No, I mean,
you know, we need little bits to be able to shine and, you know, and it has its place. But I mean, it was also a part of my ego that was me keeping myself small and not trusting myself and doubting myself. Like that's another version of ego, making yourself smaller. So being able to shed that and just go, I'm not worried if I'm rejected. And so the yoga was really profound and it just felt so natural for me once I got into it. And then, I did that that was 2017. And then that must have been nearly a year. And then I moved over here. And I stepped out of personal training and group fitness for 5 years. And I just went full-time yoga teaching here. Started in this space. So I've been here for 7 years now.
So beautiful.
Seen some massive transformations, held some energy here and really stepped into my role as a yoga teacher but also, and that's the thing as well for me, is it's just been not making it too much of my identity. If that makes sense. It's something I
that's
do.
Ego too.
And it's something I do and I love it so much. And I don't know everything. You know, and unfortunately for me, I haven't been to India and had that real experience there. But just knowing what I feel in my bones and when I read all of the scriptures, the Yoga Sutras and everything, just how much life it brings to me. It's like I couldn't imagine myself not doing this. And just sensing the shift that happens in a room just by guiding people to breathe. And giving them permission to feel shit. Like I'll say that even when I start a class, is I'll say, you know, if you want to cry, if you want to scream, if you want to like take a big sigh, and give yourself permission and also allow the person next to you to do that if they have to.
Well, you always remember, how long ago did we meet now? We were like 6 months ago.
Yeah, it's been a while.
But you are one of the few people in my life that like gives me permission to just feel things, right? Because I've come to you a couple times where I've said like, I feel really like I have a lot of pent up anger or
I want to
grief
cry
or whatever, and there's a resistance to it, and you always say, Amy, you can feel that, that's okay. And
you don't
it's
have
always
to be
this
the
reminder
sunshine.
of like, oh yeah, and not that you're giving me permission, but it's like this feeling of, it's just a reminder of like, that's part of the human experience, and you can just feel that and not want to push it away or distract yourself or do whatever.
Yeah,
so
totally.
But that kind of brings me on to the point about like, we spoke about how, you know, as a yoga teacher here, like you're holding a lot of space for people and a lot of space for their emotions. And Johnny and I spoke about that in his episode, in the first episode of the podcast, because he does the same as a gym owner, and he's in there every day, and people rely on Johnny to show up and be consistent and, you know, guide them and coach them. And so how do you manage that day to day?
So that's been quite a big part of the journey. It's not just learning the skills on how to command the energy in the group, how to hold the space. The biggest thing for me has been those energetic boundaries of not taking on everything and, you know, feeling it myself and making it mine. It's being able to go, right, I've got this, you've got that, and allowing that to happen. So learning those energetic boundaries has been a really big thing. But to be honest, I guess everything that I have learnt through the complete despair and destruction within the betrayal within my relationship with my my boy's father, I never thought I'd ever get to the point where I'd be like, wow, I learnt so many amazing lessons from that.
Right.
But almost by me really going into the destruction within my own life, within that experience, and giving myself permission to feel it, getting back into yoga teaching in the midst of all of that, has taught me that it's just okay to be with someone, to be with myself, with whatever I'm feeling, and to give someone else that permission. And it does. You said, oh, it's not about permission, but it actually kind of is.
Yeah.
Because of the way our society is constructed and the messaging that we were given as children, we were told, no, hold it in, be quiet, stuff it down. Now it's about giving people permission. It's about giving ourselves permission. And because I've learned that within myself, I gave myself permission to feel the grief, to feel the rage, to feel the anger, and not be afraid if I'm going to get rejected anymore. I want to give that to other people.
Well, also on that point, an amazing piece of advice that you gave to me a few months ago about different feelings that I'd never heard or read before was, when you're feeling different things, you've got to release the energy in different ways. So a lot of people, when they're angry, will turn to meditation or yoga, because we kind of hear that, oh, we should turn to those practices to make ourselves feel better. And we were having this great conversation, and you said, Amy, actually a lot of the time with anger, you need to go out and box or like do Muay Thai or
energy.
And then with grief, it's actually a bit better sometimes to just sit still and sit in it and feel it. And that was so profound.
Well, that was profound for me, right? That only came up in the last maybe 8 months of my journey.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And I realized once I finally got in touch with, holy shit, because I used to say, I'm not an angry person. I'm so happy and bubbly and I love people, which I do. But actually, I have a lot of anger. I've experienced a lot of anger. I've had a lot of boundary violations in my life.
You have,
and I learnt to suppress them because that was the safest way.
And then it'll come out in other ways.
And then you disrespect yourself and all those other things. So that was probably the profoundest thing for me, is like energy moves like energy. So, you know, this whole push to yoga is amazing, but, you know, movement and exercise and strength training is also amazing. And you've got all of these amazing practices that you can do. And obviously I've dived right into hot and cold compression, immersion. ice baths, all of that. Everything has its place.
Yeah.
And it's just knowing what it is that you're trying to move or what it is that you're feeling through. Because what I found was when the anger started coming up and I needed to release it, if I then went and got in the cold ocean, I was actually extinguishing that fire. And not in a way where it was like, oh, it's gone. It was like, oh, it's going to come back up again. And that's where
you're suppressing it.
Yeah.
So it's gone for, okay.
So it's not actually releasing it. So like energy moves like energy. So for heat, for anger, for rage, for boundary violations, that's where things like your boxing, your Muay Thai,
running,
you know, strength training. Yep.
Yeah.
Not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Highly resistant to long distance running. But yeah, even that sort of thing. And then, like you said, if there's grief and sadness, that's about becoming slow.
Yeah.
You know, maybe going and walking in the rain or, you know, like finding things that the energy aligns to allow it to move through you, because energy has to come to a peak and then it has to drop.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're doing something to try and move grief and it's just trying to speed yourself up and, you know, doing a HIIT class, you're not allowing yourself to cry.
Yeah, 100%. Honestly, this has been so useful in my life. Like I've carried that ever since you told me that months ago, because I think it kind of makes sense because like in London, I was really stressed and I would get home late and I would just need to run. I'm not a natural runner. It does not, it's always been hard for me. It doesn't come naturally, but in that time of my life, I would just get home and I would just feel it. Like if I did not go my run, I got up a couple times in the night and it was like 1 a.m. and I would just run round Greenwich in London, just like headphones on, and it would make me feel so much better. And it's like if I hadn't been able to do that, oh my goodness, I would have gotten a bit crazy. But it's like, whereas now I can kind of sense like if I'm feeling sad or whatever, I'll kind of sit with that a bit more rather than try and like run it out. So it's the same sort of thing. And I just think hopefully people watching and listening will take, I guess, solace from that advice, because it's okay to want to go out and move that energy.
Well, it's just honoring the energy of the emotion. Yeah. And because every emotion brings different energies and it affects the body physiologically in different ways. You know, but the way that I experience anger in my body is the same way that you'll feel it in your body. You know, core temperature rises, we start to sweat, you might clench your fists, you might clench your jaw, you know, so the outside trigger might be different, the experience, but the way that I experience anger and will feel it,
it's pretty similar.
Is no different to the way that you feel it in your body. It's just that we express it differently. Yeah.
So interesting. Motherhood.
Big one.
Yeah, huge one.
Yeah.
So I guess my first question on that is, because Saber, your son Saber, so you've got one child, your son.
And then I've got a stepdaughter.
So she's
8.5.
Yeah, and how old's Saber?
5.5.
5.5.
Yeah.
How have you found that being a mum has kind of, if it has, changed your view on success and I guess contentment in life? I'm assuming that it has, but I would imagine that it probably has. Yeah.
So it's changed my view on everything because it became no longer just about me. And so when I, you know, decided to stop drinking and moved away from home and then started pursuing my career, and, you know, I was single for 6.5 years. I could move in whatever direction I wanted, whenever I wanted. I had all the time in the world for my friends and my connections and all these practices that started bringing me to life. Being a mum totally shifted that, you know, and it then became about this little person, and my nervous system was so acutely aligned and attuned to them and to him. And it can be quite overwhelming to begin with, and there's a huge amount of grief that comes with that. As much as you feel this abundance of love, it's grieving your old self and this new life and transitioning and that in between. But I measure my success now in my ability to be present with him and to be my very best self so that I can give him the tools that he's going to need to navigate life. So I'm really trying to be intentional about giving him a framework, like laying down tracks of practices that I never had, that I had to find my way to, that if I had those when I was younger, I might have veered less off track for a while. And I just really want to be able to give him some tools to be able to come back to in those times when he does get lost, because it's going to be inevitable at some point in all of our lives, where we get either swayed by the group or the need to feel connected, or just lost within ourselves, or we might lose belief in God and higher power, whatever it might be. And so I just really, my success is whether I can lay a solid foundation for him to know who he is, and to know that at all times, no matter what you're going through in life, you're never really alone.
What do you mean by that?
Well, because we're all in this experience together, right? And this is foundations of yoga again. Once, there's no way to separate universal consciousness having an experience. And so even in the times when we're alone, we might be feeling disconnected and whatever emotions that we're going through. There's also a little bit of solace in knowing that there's, at some point in time, there's someone who's lived through something similar to what you've gone through. And it may not look exactly the same.
Yeah.
But also for me, just going, we all experience emotions the same. Yeah. And just something so fundamental. It's like, how can I be alone in that?
I know. I think I'd like to think I'd always kind of say that social media, I think it's a great thing. I actually have quite a positive view on it as a whole. But I think, it does kind of create this image to us all that we live with every day, which is like, oh my gosh, I'm the only one struggling. I'm the only one feeling this, because when you go through people's stories or go through people's posts, it's like always the highlights.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I do think it is creating this idea that we are sometimes completely alone in what we feel and think, because if you jump onto TikTok there's some really realistic content out there, which is great, but it's kind of overwhelmingly this idea of like, everyone else is doing really well. And I had the flu over the weekend or whatever it was, virus. You best believe I was in my bed on Saturday.
Feeling sorry for
feeling
yourself.
Sorry for myself. Feeling so shit about myself. Obviously going through Instagram being
I
like,
shouldn't be sick. I should be out doing this.
Yeah. And so it's the whole thing, don't we shouldn't be filled. But
I think that whole thing about success is just stepping back from the I should have this, I should have that, I should be this, I should be that. And it's more just about going, I am this, I am that, and knowing where you are in space and time and whatever is happening currently in your life, and just being with what is, even if it's not what you desire.
Yeah. Yes.
And oftentimes that will happen. And in those moments, it can be quite overwhelming to be with what is when you haven't asked for it. It's something that might bring devastation and pain and loss and all of those things to the surface, and there's nothing else that you can see. But yeah, I guess that's my thing as a mother is I measure the success by how well I can handle life's ups and downs and teach my boy the resilience to get through it himself, because I will never let anything defeat me. It might knock me down and it might hurt me and I might lay down for a little bit and have to catch my breath, but I will always get back up.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
There's too much to experience. There's too much abundance in this world. There's too many people to connect with and to meet and to just...
You're such a fighter. You're such a fighter. I've not known you for that long, but something I can definitely say about you is that I know that you're resilient and a huge fighter. And actually it's really inspirational, because I've gone through some hard times here, moving halfway across the world, not really having any of my family or long-standing friends. And actually you have really inspired me during those hard times to like fight rather than to just, yes, you can sit in it.
Yeah.
But there's been days then where I've just been like, you know, like wallowing a bit.
Yeah.
And then it's like, actually, I need to get up and just fight through this a wee bit. It's like, you know.
Yeah.
And you've kind of taught me that
Oh,
through getting closer to you.
yeah.
But that's really interesting about motherhood, because obviously I don't have any kids. I don't know, but I can imagine it completely just shifts your view on things. And on the point page, because we were talking earlier about the grief that you can feel as a mother when you kind of have to mourn your old life. And you said that you felt like it doesn't really get talked about.
No, it gets glamorized, especially on Instagram and with the whole like nesting and creating a baby nursery, this whole separate room for this little person that's just come out of your body, and that's a whole nother conversation.
Like, yes.
But yeah, like there's so much focus on the baby, which is amazing. But we used to support our mothers in community. And I guess that's just the thing with everything being turned away from maternal.
Yeah.
You know, we used to sit around as women in a red tent together and, you know, all these things that we used to honour our cycles.
Yeah.
And now it's like, take some Panadol, go to work.
Right.
You know, and so that sort of happens with motherhood. It's like have the baby and go for your 6-week check and go back to normal life.
Get the feck on with it, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Gosh.
no, I definitely didn't do that.
I can't imagine how hard that.
And so what I found was I'm so grateful that I had delved into my yoga practice well before I became a mom, and I was in the thick of teaching when I felt pregnant, and I taught the whole way through my pregnancy. And so being hapu while teaching.
that's cool.
Oh, it was so amazing.
Yeah.
It was so amazing, and it was so interesting because there was just this abundance that started coming through at that time, and people were calling me. I was getting random texts and calls throughout that. Can you teach a yoga class here? Can you teach a yoga? And I was like, I actually had to start saying no because I just didn't have capacity. But once he got here, because I'd built such an inner standing of, you know, my inner world and what I'm feeling. And so once you get turned inside out and you have this baby and your nervous system is rewired, amplified.
Yeah.
And then we become primed to process bits of information that we don't pay attention to before you become a mother or before you go through pregnancy.
What do you mean?
I mean exactly that. Our nervous system grows. It's like a tree. You grow new roots. Your nervous system becomes more sensitive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's also a grieving of that, because things that you might have been ignorant to before when you were, you know, going through your girlhood and transitioning into womanhood,
right?
And then you become mother, and you go into the underworld, and then you've got to come back up,
right? Interesting.
And there's this grief in that because your innocence and your naivety's been shattered. Yeah,
that's huge.
Yeah, and it's also like, oh, it's not just me anymore. Everything I do affects this other person.
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
it's a lot.
But in that grief, there's also this profound cracking open.
Yeah.
And I guess that's a part of the grief as well, is things that, like I said, things that you could have ignored before, you just can't anymore. You know? Yeah.
Because somebody depends on you.
Yeah, but it's also realizing that every child around you is yours.
That's huge. That's huge. Gosh, there must be so. Are you emotional right now?
I'm always emotional.
Yeah. That's okay, Paige. That's okay.
Always, yeah.
But you're dealing with a lot. I mean, you've gone through a lot recently, and you've been incredibly resilient in the circumstances. And that kind of leads me on to the book that you're kind of finishing off at the moment.
Yeah, finishing. Woo.
That you've been writing. Well, yeah, but you've been writing it for 13 years now, you said? Yeah. And I feel that because you're hoping to publish it sometime soon.
So it came to me when I first moved to the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
And literally got woken up from my sleep one night and it got dropped in. I've still got the original note in my phone.
Yeah, I've seen this note. It's cool. Yeah.
And so it's evolved. It's definitely evolved. And I knew when I received this insight that I was going to write it and that I had to write it, and it was my life's mission. And I knew it was going to take me some time.
Yeah.
And I knew there were lots of things I had to learn, but I didn't quite expect the way things were going to go.
Yeah.
So my goal is to have it completed by the end of this year.
Yeah.
And I just know that I have to get it done. And I don't need to know the hows or the who's.
No.
And, to getting it published, I just know that I need to get it done. And once it's done, then it'll be the next step. It'll get published and we'll go from there. But
Are you a perfectionist? Yeah. Is it kind of just...
Well, I would like to say I try to manage my perfectionism a little bit more now, and because I paint and I draw and I write, and I'm always been into artistry, and that was a part of learning to put myself out there, is just going accept things with their imperfections. Yeah.
And so you're kind of moving past that phase right now where you kind of want it to be perfect, and you're
well, because it's also tied in with rejection dysmorphia, right? I don't want to be rejected by people, and I don't want to be judged, and I'm just, now it's not about other people, it's not about me even, it's about the message that's coming through me. It's just getting it all out.
Yeah.
And making sure it's coherent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you want to touch on briefly what it's about for people listening? Because I've seen snippets of it and it looks incredible and so helpful. Like, I can't wait to read it.
So it's, the fundamental, I guess the basis of the book is how we develop self-trust. Yeah. And it's all tied in with everything that I've experienced, gone through, observed, studied. Yeah, all of it.
You've put so much energy and effort into it. It's gonna be a good read. I just know it. Paige, I think we should wrap up soon, but I'm gonna ask you a couple more questions before I let you go. I guess, what are the pros and cons to living this kind of more like free-flowing freelance life, would you say, if like people were to kind of like listen to your story today and kind of want to live this kind of lifestyle as a teacher and a personal trainer and a writer?
So it's scary.
Yeah.
There's no security.
Yeah.
In the traditional sense that, you get holiday pay and sick pay. I don't get any of that.
No.
If I go on holidays, I have to get my classes covered or my clients looked after, and that's just money out the bank for me. I don't get any of it.
Yeah.
So that sucks. If you're sick, it's the same thing. So there's a lot of budgeting, I guess, and improving my relationship with money has been a big thing as well. So that's one. And then the other thing is just whether you have trust in yourself. There's a big sort of imposter syndrome and all of that sort of thing that I've had to work through, and that rejection dysmorphia. You need to be able to be confident in what you're selling, but still know that, like, be humble and know that you still have space to learn and grow.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really important part of, any sort of freelancing, not just teaching yoga or personal training, knowing that you're putting yourself out there and it's a relationship business. You're not really selling a service or even a product. It's about the relationship and the trust that person has in you.
Right.
And I think that's sort of the pro and the con for some people, because you have to be authentic.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of people out there that sell bullshit, and it sells, unfortunately.
I know.
In every industry. But eventually that's going to start turning.
I reckon. I think we're actually starting to see a shift in that at the moment.
Yeah. And it's like everything is about connection.
Authentic connection.
Authentic connection. And I'm just trying to think. A pro for me is just I get a little bit more freedom. Obviously, I'm so blessed that I get to, I literally work mum life. I drop him to school. I come and do my morning classes. I knock out my clients. It might be 2 or 3 for the day.
Yeah.
And I actually intentionally try to keep at least an hour to 2 hours every afternoon before school pickup for me to get my book writing or my exercise program in, because I don't have any other time. So there is that freedom, which is an amazing pro. And my time's not dictated by some big corporation that tells me that I'm just another number.
I know. But some people find a lot of comfort in that, right? Because they don't want to. Yeah. There's so much self-mastery.
Yeah.
that comes
Well, because
from...
you have to know how to manage your time.
Yeah.
And your energy and your boundaries.
Right. So much self-mastery that comes with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah, I learned that from my friend Em Roth, because she's a freelancer.
I love that.
Shout out to Em. But
Shout out to Em.
she's a graphic designer, right? And she's kind of doing freelance, and we've had a lot of great conversations around like how it is great for the pros that you get with that life, but it's also really hard sometimes because it's you setting your schedule, turning up every day, being productive, like,
and you have to be reliable, and consistent
for other people and for yourself.
Oh, totally.
You know?
Yeah. But the biggest pro I would say is just finding alignment with yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, it's I become enriched being able to hold space for other people to move through whatever it is that they've. Some days it might be nothing. Some days people just come and they want to walk away feeling that post-yoga high, or whether it's in the gym, whatever it is, they just want to feel good.
Yeah.
And then sometimes people will come to class because there is some pain and discomfort that they're feeling, and they need to be able to go into that. And so they might have a good release and cry, and I'll go over and I can just hold their feet or put my hands on their shoulders or on the back of their head. And like, that's everything when someone is moving through something that's
tough.
Yeah.
100%. Okay, wrapping up our wonderful conversation today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. One more question. For anyone listening that feels, listening and watching, that feels like they're aspiring towards living a life that you do as a freelance yoga teacher, writer, mum, you know, all these different aspects of your life, what would you, if they felt stuck listening to this and they didn't know where to go, what piece of advice would you give to them?
Bring it back to the breath. Get honest with yourself. Journaling is a huge, huge tool that I just think is so underrated. And I've still got my journal since I was 8 years old. I think that's one tool that has helped me my whole life, is writing.
Yeah.
Writing how I feel. Don't need to have a structure for it. You can ask yourself questions if you want to, but just let it come out.
Yeah, this is where I was going wrong for so long with journaling. It was always like the headline question. And
you can do that.
Which is so good.
But
there's some days you just want to be like...
and giving yourself permission to do that. So I think it's just, giving yourself permission. And, come back to the breath. Yeah. Know yourself, and having those hard conversations with the self. Don't look for outside validation. You need to know who you are, what it is that you need, what it is that you want, and just start small. Just doing something.
Yeah.
Try something.
2 minutes a day of journaling.
Totally. I think we focus too much on the end result, and sometimes it's just those tiny little steps. It's just making decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Paige, thank you.
Thank you.
This has been awesome.
We need to stop, otherwise
we will sit here till the end of the day. That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.